When a human head is severed from its body, the brain doesn't shut down immediately. For nearly half a minute, the eyes can blink, the lips may try to form words, and a horrifying awareness lingers as neural activity fades into total darkness. This haunting interval likely belonged to Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII. Official Tudor accounts politely gloss over these grisly details, portraying her execution as a solemn, dignified passing, delivered by a swift, clean sword strike. But the physical beheading was only the climax of a three-part campaign engineered by the state to destroy her mind, her body, and her historical legacy. By May 19, 1536, Anne had been locked inside the Tower of London for 17 days. Just 3 years earlier, these same walls had housed her as she prepared for a glorious coronation. Inside this fortress, Henry's chief minister, Thomas Cromwell, launched a campaign of state-sponsored gaslighting. Anne was isolated and interrogated with manufactured charges, including incest and conspiracy to kill the king, specifically designed to dismantle her reputation and her sanity. To further break her, the state repeatedly postponed the execution. This uncertainty was a form of psychological torture, designed to gnaw at a prisoner more effectively than the fear of death itself. Under this crushing stress, Anne famously joked about her little neck. While often romanticized as bravery, psychologists today recognize this gallows humor as dissociation, a mind's desperate defense mechanism against unbearable trauma. The state had successfully engineered total despair, dismantling her spirit and her will to resist long before she ever saw the executioner's blade. The morning of May 19th felt more like a carnival than a courtroom. At Tower Green, the state packed the crowd with planted hecklers, ensuring Anne's final walk was met with a chorus of manufactured mockery. Even the architecture of her death was designed to humiliate. Traditional English scaffolds were towering, imposing structures, but the state built a degrading 3-foot platform for Anne, stripping away her royal stature and forcing her closer to the jeering mob. Anne's submissive final words were a calculated sacrifice. By praising the king as a merciful ruler without confessing guilt, she attempted to protect her infant daughter, Elizabeth. Any sign of defiance on the scaffold would have triggered immediate royal retribution against the child. For the execution itself, Henry imported a French swordsman, which required a terrifyingly different technique. Instead of laying her head on a wooden block, Anne had to kneel entirely upright, relying on her own stillness to receive the strike. Blindfolded and plunged into darkness, she was forced to listen for the horizontal strike of an unseen blade. The stroke was clean, but the horror was far from over. When the executioner held the head aloft, the crowd saw her eyes still darting and her lips still twitching, as though trying to finish a prayer interrupted by the sword. This gruesome spectacle was a carefully choreographed performance of power, designed to terrorize any woman or subject who dared rise above their rank. The indignity continued after death. With no coffin prepared, her attendants were forced to shove her remains into an old arrow chest for burial in an unmarked grave, denied any proper Christian funeral. Henry immediately ordered her scrubbed from existence. His agents destroyed her portraits and erased her initials from palace walls, making her name a forbidden subject at court. Henry himself did not pause to mourn. He became formally betrothed to Jane Seymour just 24 hours after the execution. This campaign of erasure even targeted their 3-year-old daughter. Elizabeth was stripped of her title, declared illegitimate, and abandoned by the court without proper clothing or care. The speed of Henry's marriage and the systematic scrubbing of Anne's legacy revealed the true nature of the execution, a brutal exercise in authoritarian control to eliminate a political inconvenience. For centuries, Henry's propagandists succeeded in recasting this execution as an act of mercy, laying the groundwork for a sanitized version of Tudor history. Yet, despite the psychological torture and the systematic destruction of her identity, Henry's meticulously planned campaign failed. the toddler Henry discarded survived. She grew up to become Queen Elizabeth I, ruling for nearly half a century and defining the very era that would ultimately cement her mother's place in history. The execution of Anne Boleyn remains a timeless warning about the fragility of truth under absolute power. But it is also proof that the machinery of propaganda cannot permanently silence